it's Brittany, and I am with Brian today, and we have got our CAIC Avalanche report ready to go. And Brian, what do you got for us today?
All right, well, let's talk about the good news. So we have a trend essentially of improving avalanche conditions. Things are slowly stabilizing as we move away from our last big loading event, which took place last weekend. And so if I kind of start where our danger map looks like midweek, you can see we've already got, a lot of moderate danger, which is safer conditions than we've seen in many places for quite some time. As we move through the rest of the work week, we're just seeing little bits of snow, little dribs and drabs. It's not going to be enough to increase the avalanche danger. It's giving those buried weak layers some time to heal. And so we can expect a lot of the northern mountains to also move into moderate danger. This area I've highlighted in the central mountains, which extends south from about the Crested Butte area, north through the Aspen ski areas and in towards Beaver Creek and Vail, is our most dangerous snowpack in the state, because it's kind of got this combination of deep enough snow to produce really big avalanches and weak layers close enough to the surface to still fail. And so that area right in the central mountains is going to hang on to considerable danger for the longest period of time, and it's still kind of the most dangerous area in the state. We are dealing with a persistent slab avalanche problem statewide. So whether it's considerable danger or moderate danger, that just means how likely it is to trigger these persistent slab avalanches. But it's the same flavor of avalanche no matter where you go. And as you can see here, we're looking at large to very large avalanches. And these slopes that face kind of west around through north and southeast are the most problematic. The southerly facing slopes generally are harboring safer conditions.
And Brian, I did want to ask you, can you share with me what are the most dangerous slopes?
Yeah, and so we kind of have that outlined here on our avalanche distribution rows, but the easiest way to see that when you're out in the field it's going to be wind-loaded slopes. And so we've had predominantly really strong westerly winds. It's even scoured some west-facing slopes in the Alpine, but it has moved a lot of snow, as this photo demonstrates, onto easterly-facing aspects. So it's essentially the east side of the compass. So from north around through east all the way to south, particularly at the higher elevations near and above tree line, those are the most dangerous because they've received the most amount of wind loading. And all that wind loading is happening on a snowpack with weak layers anywhere from kind of 1 to 4 feet deep, depending on where you're going. Here's an example from near McClure Pass at a lower elevation, but you can see we've got a weak layer down about 1.5 feet and another one down around near 3 feet. These weak layers are stabilizing, they're becoming less reactive, but these are where these avalanches are breaking. And unfortunately, you can see here that last really strong wind event that started our last storm last week and did bring in our first really prominent dust layer from Arizona. Not a problem now, but it does demarcate that early March snowstorm. And it's something we'll have to keep an eye on as it starts to surface later in the spring. But what we have been seeing is this continued kind of series of avalanches breaking fairly wide and deep. And here's an example of a snowmobile triggered avalanche near Cottonwood Pass that was triggered from a distance, quite a ways away from these flat meadows where the people were snowmobiling. But this thing broke, over 1,500 foot wide. And obviously you would not want to be caught in something like this. And when we're talking about steeper slopes overhead, given the nature of our avalanche problem, it means you can trigger avalanches from a distance and you can trigger them from below, even from flat areas. And you can see that these avalanches are now growing quite large in some places and would be very difficult to survive. And here's just an example over the last few days, including some fairly dramatic footage. And this one's from out near Ashcroft. This released naturally just from a little bit of snow and a little bit of wind loading. And as you can see, the avalanche ran down into the flats, crossed flat areas where there's even some groomed Nordic trails. And so when we're talking about in the forecast of being cognizant and aware of steep slopes overhead, this is exactly the reason why. And you can see these avalanches are breaking in these wind-loaded areas, and the most problematic are right below kind of ridge line and right behind vegetation breaks, because those will receive the most wind loading. Now we've got another kind of more potent storm, but it doesn't arrive till late in the work week, in the middle of the weekend. And you can see here, by the time we get into Saturday, we're starting to stack up some fairly good snow along the east side of the Continental Divide and the Sangre de Cristo Range, and the southern mountains look to pick up some pretty decent snow by midday on Saturday. So you can see some of these areas that are showing up red here moving back into considerable danger at the very end of the work week and through the middle of the weekend. So expect avalanche conditions to grow a little bit worse as we move into the weekend, but in general, until then, we're in the stabilizing trend.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those were some pretty great photos to kind of show what was happening and what we're looking forward to. So thank you so much for sharing, and the video as well. So let us know, Brian, where can we get those live updates?
Yeah, please go to Colorado.gov/avalanche for your forecast in your particular location where you're going, or you can get all that information on the CAIC mobile app.